Welcome back to the Sharpest College Football Podcast, brought to you by LeanTossup Sports. This is BuckMetrics. I am joined, as always, by Robert Martin. Robert Martin, how are you this evening?
I'm good. Yeah, we're coming here on Tuesday night and watching some action on the left here, and we got this on the center monitor. So yeah, let's let's talk about our rankings and our plays for this week.
You know, before we start that, I just want to go back to something we covered in part one. Do you know who coached in the MAC long ago at Ball State? Brady Hoke. Can I tell you about Brady Hoke? No, I'm kidding. Okay, let's let's go to our rankings here. My metrics. Okay, this is my model. My model strength of record top 20. You know, Ohio State number one. They've been there for a few weeks now. I still have that weird picture of Ryan Day. Don't know why that's happening when I generate this file. Alabama at number two, which is higher than I think pretty much everybody else has them. Other surprises. Liberty not ranked. We'll go into some of the shortcomings of the committee a little bit later. Utah, interesting. I don't know. I'm kind of skeptical on Utah, but hey, committee and the model have them that high, so maybe I'm wrong on that. In Oregon sneaking into the top 20, my model just doesn't like their strength of schedule. If we kind of go back to what their best win is this season, it's kind of rough. I'd say that win at Utah is doing a lot of hard work for them. Now Utah's at 15 in this poll, great, but my model's not really as high on Utah from a predictive standpoint. So, what sticks out to you this or in the football playoff rankings?
Yeah, obviously they can't rank James Madison, which is very sad. But yeah, like Liberty, like it's funny, right? Because this ranking, the strength of record, it generally tracks with the CFP rankings. Generally, I mean, obviously squint a little bit, but you're there. With one notable exception, Liberty. That's just not even there at all, right? Like, you're like, Ohio State won. Yep, Ohio State won. Georgia 7. They have Georgia 2. Alabama. You have Alabama 2. They have it 8. Okay, you have to account for the loss to Texas. Texas 6. You have 6. They have 7. A lot of these are roughly in line with what you'd expect, except just Liberty just not there. Maybe they've missed Liberty games. They don't get ESPNU. I don't know, but it's something that I don't get that one. I don't get having Tulane ahead of Liberty. And again, like as we talked about in the last part, right now if the season were to end today, Tulane would be going to New Year's Six Bowl. Liberty would not be, and Tulane beat ECU by three last week. A team that is tanking basically, except they're not actually tanking. There's no tanking in college football. You just are bad. So Tulane almost lost to that team. So yeah, that's a problem if you're the CFP committee. I don't understand what this hatred of liberty is. So, yeah.
Yeah, I just think they don't know better, and we'll get into that in my deeper dive. I'll just kind of keep it as a gentleman's non-conspiracy at this point. All right, my predictive top 20 teams, which is very different. The first thing, obviously, is that Oregon's number 3 in this one. You've got them at number 6. Big difference. Notre Dame, I've got at 5th. You have them at 24th. I'm higher on LSU. I've got basically LSU's offense doing all the lifting there, and I don't know. Maybe your model's a little better adjusting for strength of opponent than mine is. Although I don't know. Notre Dame's good unless they play good defense. I think is kind of what I concluded in part one. Louisville sneaks in back into the top 20. I think they were before they had that weird loss to Narduzzi. You have Texas number 1. I think you need to have a talk with your model about the fourth down situation when it comes to Texas.
My model weirdly, and it's loved Texas all year long. I think it's to be fair, this one, because it's college, I don't have the ability to do college play-by-play data, so the play calling is different than what Sark would actually do, which I think is a hindrance there. And I think I hope next year I'm going to be able to have that play-by-play data so we can have that. But for now, we don't, right? So it's it's that's what we're that's I think that's part of it. But yeah, the model weirdly loves Texas. I don't know why. It even loves Texas against Oklahoma. So we'll see. But yeah,
The other thing that sticks out to me is as bad as USC's defense was, that was kind of just another bad defensive performance as it's been. Their offense was so strong in that game that they actually jumped into the top 20 here, and they moved. I think you had them like in the low 20s or high 30s last week, so they moved up in your model too. Oddly off a win,
mm-hmm.
but albeit against good to really good team that I don't know. I'm still not sold on Washington's defense, though. I'll say that they were every bit as
Yeah.
bad as USC's defense, just without the extra topping.
Well, that seems like that was the takeaway from last week, right? That like okay, USC's offense is good and Washington's offense is good too, but like USC's defense is just worse. And the
Yeah,
thing is, the problem is USC has lost games, actually several games so far this season, and Washington is not. And the thing is, it's like okay, but like, and to be fair, it's not like Washington won by 20. They won by like basically it was a field goal, and then it was a stop, and then off of that stop they got the touchdown, right? So I think that's the big takeaway here is that like okay, yes, these teams are like, and this is one of the unique things from our rankings that the regular like the CFP wouldn't have or anything like that. It's like okay, we can look at two teams, at basically a ranked team and a non-ranked team playing a close game, and we can say, okay, that ranked team actually, that unranked team should probably actually be ranked based off of that. Even though they lost, they should probably be ranked. But other people will be like, no, that team wasn't ranked. They lost to a ranked team, so therefore they should still not be ranked. Then that's the problem, and that's why I think our models are better in a lot of cases than that. So
yeah. Kind of occurs to me that basically when we have this 14 playoff, and you'll kind of get the theme here that includes USC, Washington, Florida State, and LSU. We should just score it by like volleyball, Washington basically won last week 7-6.
yeah,
Just, that's kind of how it goes. They had like they stopped serve on one serve, and that was the
yeah,
difference.
it's basically it. Yeah,
Yeah. All right, top 20 offenses. God, LSU, it just seems crazy to say, but they're tracking ahead of that 2019 LSU offense. I mean, they're a touchdown ahead of USC, which seems almost unstoppable. And what are they, like 9 points ahead of this Washington offense, which is just unreal as well. Ole Miss jumps into the top 20, not surprising. Louisville, I think they were in and out, so they're back in again. And Georgia Tech stays in the top 20 at number 17. No real surprises for me on this one, though.
yeah. I think like it's interesting that this LSU team is so good on offense, and they showed that, except that they just kind of got shut down there in the end against Bama. Bama had two stops, and again, it was a 10-point, or no, was it 10-point? Or 14-point. It was 14-point win. Again, very, very similar thing. It's just like, okay, you got to stop, and then we got two stops, and then we scored on those, and that's it. That was the game. And I think I think people are really kind of underlooking how good that LSU offense is, and the fact that it actually is still a really good offense. And it may not pay off this year because now it's a 3-loss LSU team. But in next year, watch out for this LSU team with Brian Kelly again. And maybe we said it last year too, and we'll say it again. But watch out for this. This LSU team will do something. And next year, when they have the expanded playoff, they'd be a playoff team, right? So that's something to
Yeah,
keep track of for sure.
I didn't see this offense being anywhere near this good. I thought they'd be okayish, but not this good. And since we're talking about LSU, I kind of want to make a point, draw a parallel to a different situation. The team that's right behind them. Their defensive coordinator, Matt House. Now, I have probably more faith in Brian Kelly maybe than any other person that's not a fan of his program. What's interesting was Matt House, his defensive coordinator. I looked up his background. He was he was a defensive coordinator before, but it was at Kentucky. And I want to bring up that the head coach there is Mark Stoops, who's a former defensive coordinator as well. And I bring that up because I've seen some people throw out names like the Rutgers DC as maybe the next guy to be the USC defensive coordinator. I think you got to be really careful when you do that kind of move, because you don't really know who's running that offense and who's really calling the shots. I think, especially number one at a high profile job like USC, number two, when the head coach is an offensive guy, you need somebody that's basically been completely responsible for the defense. So kind of like why I like going back to part one, Zach Arnett for that job, because, he coached under Leach, who's an offensive guy and really gives his defensive coordinators a lot of room. So just kind of tying up a loose end as it relates to LSU, since, clearly their Achilles heel is a defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
All right. Top 20 defenses. James Franklin makes up some ground on Iowa somehow. Even though Iowa was a monster against Northwestern. Tennessee back in the top 20. They've been in and out a couple times. Utah, I think they've been in and out as well. And same with Louisville. Again, not to make this a sweepstakes about who's the next USC defensive coordinator, but I see Iowa State there and John Heacock. I thought about this too. He actually had a lot of success against Oklahoma when Lincoln Riley was there. So that might be somebody that he steals just because, he knows firsthand. I mean, I think he beat them once, maybe twice, and I think he came close a third time. Other than that, the other thing that's interesting is Oregon was like, I think they were number 3 about a month ago. Not saying their defense is bad. It's just an interesting slide. Now, conference games will do that to you. Not sure how many great offenses they've played besides Washington, though. So that's interesting. USC might put up a few more points than people think. And I don't think that's one of the games we're going to talk about. Of course, I don't know. If you had to put an over under on the number of times Oregon's going to punt on Saturday, what would you make it? Half?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Probably one. That'd be a safe number.
1.5 under. Yeah, maybe set that. I'd set under 1.5, and then I make that line even, minus 110 on each side, or whatever the fake is.
Yeah. UCLA fell a little bit out of that elite category, so they're not really eligible for consideration for an underplay. So I play them under, even though it's not an official model play, but just kind of my own emotion, just how strong they are. And I think they play Arizona State this week in the Arizona State. I don't know if you caught this in part one. We discussed a little bit. They have a little bit of a problem at the quarterback position. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Yeah, little bit of a problem. Mostly the fact I have no idea who is their starting quarterback now. So, yeah.
All right, the group of 5 top 10. This is where things get a little spicy. Liberty, as we've mentioned a couple times between part 1 and part 2, is the best team in. You know what I don't have? I need to include your rankings in this too. I think you have Liberty as the top
1, 2,
G5 as well. I'll do that. Shame on me for not doing that. This was really interesting. San Jose State just jumps into the top 10 and all the way up at number 6. And they actually play Fresno State this week. That'll be a good test about how legitimate that is. I didn't see that coming at all. They've, and bad on me again for not having your rankings. I'm really curious how high your model is on them. Air Force, aside from that debacle, stays in the top 10. What's interesting there is my model doesn't really punish fumbles. And I think of their 6 turnovers last week, 4 were fumbles. So you get kind of freebies on those. And Miami of Ohio sneaks into the top 10, although I think their quarterback, Brett Gabbert's out for the season. I know that I asked you when you ran your numbers to take him out of the model. So we'll see how long they stay up there.
Yeah, for reference, whoever played for each team, it basically goes through all the data, and whoever played the most snaps at quarterback last year is assumed to be the starter for the next week.
Okay.
So basically, that's specifically because there's 133 teams, and there's no way I can keep track of starting quarterbacks for 133 teams, or even like It's even doing that now for running back. So, for example, if someone on like offense, like a running back, or whatever, didn't play running back last week, or
Yeah.
he didn't play at all last week, he's not playing this week. So now you have a problem when a guy comes back from injury, but the assumption is that like then he's just at like, so it's not perfect, but it's better than nothing because we have no way to tell for injury reports, right? I'm not going to be like, oh, Liberty's second string running back is back this week. Cool. Like, no, that's not happening.
I'm looking here. I don't. Would you have San Jose State like as an abbreviation? Maybe as SJSU or?
No, I have them as, I do have them higher actually. I think. Oh no, I don't have them that high. I have them like 78th, but when you adjust for it,
You have the accent over the E.
yeah, there's a couple
Sneaky
in our
guy.
models where we have a couple of different words. I have the accent on the E. You have Middle Tennessee State. I have Middle Tennessee. It's very similar, but it's just small little things. But yeah, no, I have San Jose State as relatively high. I think they're actually pretty good. South Alabama, James Madison as well. Yeah, I agree with this. Air Force, though, just absolutely tumbling down the rankings after whatever that was against against Army. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Top 10 quarterbacks. Michael Pratt, just from outside of the top 10, just runs in. Interesting. Jumps in at number 5. Had a good game against Tulane. I don't know how they only got 13 points. That something really doesn't make sense in that game. That weird 13-10 win over horrible East Carolina. And look who came in at number 9 to save the season for unfortunate Arkansas State fans and stick them with Butch Jones for a couple more years. Jalen Rayner. One of those, I can't even call him. I think we have to have a new segment next year in part 1 called UFOs, where, my old boss would just say, well, everything's okay as long as a UFO doesn't come in and just from out of nowhere and screw things up. And I think we've had UFOs in him, in Keelan Stokes, in this Cade kid, I forget his last name, at UTEP. This guy, who am I? I'm forgetting. Oh, Castellanos at Boston College.
Yeah.
TJ Finley, who was not slated to start. Just another UFO. And this UFO just ran to the top 10 here. My gosh. The other thing I'd like to point out too is we're at that point now where some of these podcasts with the national writers who stink at this, they're doing the thing now after Alabama's big win, saying, "Hey, let me tell you, folks, you know who's actually a good quarterback is Jalen Milroe." And my gosh, how long have I been saying? First of all, I said, "Well, here he is," and I don't believe it, but it's there. He's been there for like 5 or 6 weeks in the top 10, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't say I hate to say it. I love to say it, but it's just frustrating. Once again, we're way ahead of the story. When these guys break it 5 or 6 weeks later, like they're the first to know and to let the rest of us know what what the real scoop is. So welcome to the party, guys. It's about over. We've been here for 5 weeks.
When is that for Liberty? Is it going to be like they're going to beat up like some team in like the second last week of the season and be like, oh my God, guys, Liberty's actually good. We're just, I'll just flip over whatever desk I'm in front of and just be like, it's ridiculous.
Well, we talked about in part 1, they have an easy schedule. So maybe they just, maybe they win their conference championship like 50-3 over New Mexico State. And then,
then they get the bid.
Yeah, then this will be, hey, you know what? We didn't talk about it, but Liberty is actually pretty good.
We really slept on this Liberty team as they destroy the conference game 50-3. They're like, wow, we really slept on them.
All right, top 10 player Ryans. New name in here, Ricky White at UNLV. I was really upset when UNLV fired Marcus Arroyo. I don't know if we talked about their offensive coordinator. He was the wide receiver coach at Pitt when Jordan Addison was there. And then it was his departure that really led Addison to transfer to USC. And he was the wide receiver coach last year at Texas. So he clearly is doing something right with their offense. And interesting name to pop up there. Want to also point out that you had 2 top 10 wide receivers in Polk and Odunze going against number 5 in Washington. And this week we have a top 10 matchup in Washington, Taj Washington, to not confuse the matter, from USC going against Troy Franklin, number 9, with Oregon. That'll be, I don't know, a lot of points in that one. I don't think I'm
Yeah.
playing the over, but that would, I don't know, I'd be hard pressed to play the under in that one.
I mean, it's the thing is, it's 14.5 now. Or is it 14? It's something. It's like two full scores.
Yeah, I think I saw it at 15 now.
It's so big, and it's like now. To be fair, and this is they're basically telling on themselves because they're basically saying, yeah, okay, Oregon's better than Washington because it's like okay, like Washington was like 4-point favorites or 3.5, whatever against USC, but like Oregon is now like 14, and then like, but yet, and the best part is you look at the Heisman odds now, and it's literally I think Bo Nix and Michael Penix like both plus 175, which I think is them basically saying okay, whoever wins the conference wins the Heisman, which is hilarious because that's not that's not how this is supposed to work, but fine. That's basically them both saying okay, if they both go to the conference championship game undefeated, then whoever wins the Heisman, which is not how this is supposed to work, but fine, I guess if we've just decided that, okay. But no, this is basically them saying, yeah, Oregon's better because it's like now. First of all, Washington actually won by 10, so now Oregon's like, okay, it's that 10 plus another almost score, like half of a score, and then now they're like, well, this also in Oregon's spread is like 10 points higher than the Washington initial one. Now, the only thing I'd be concerned about in that matchup specifically is because they fired Alex Grinch. So who is the defensive coordinator? And I'd be kind of worried that it could be someone maybe good. I don't know who, but I don't even know who knows defense on that team. And if there was someone on the team who knew defense, I don't know why that person wasn't put in charge weeks ago. So, yeah,
You're not alone in that sentiment. I can tell you that.
like the only thing, like I
Yeah.
feel like they fired him because they had to. They're like, okay, like they were gonna fire him anyways, so just like let's just do it now. But like if there was someone who could have been defensive coordinator, why wasn't that person defensive coordinator like months ago? Like when they played a close game against Arizona State, I would have been like, okay, now is the time to make a change. But I don't know.
Yeah. And for the record, actually, they have co-interim defensive coordinators. Sean Nua, the defensive line coach, who I want to say did good work with Ojabo and Hutchinson at Michigan, although they kind of had a head start knowing the opposing team's plays. And then the other guy is Brian Odom, who, when Riley left to come to Oklahoma, he took Grinch with him. So Odom was actually the interim defensive coordinator for the bowl game. Then he came over later. So he has run an offense for one game. Actually, what's interesting is I forgot about this. That was actually that interim interim game, the bowl game where he was the interim DC was against all teams, Oregon. Interestingly enough.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was Oklahoma versus Oregon. Actually, fun fact: people are now. I've seen a couple of projections online with Outback Bowl USC versus Oklahoma.
Oh my gosh! It'd be better. Go ahead. Yes.
Because it can happen, right? Because last year the Outback Bowl was Oklahoma. 2 years ago it was Oklahoma versus Oregon, and it's the same. It's Pac-12 versus Big 12, and it's like okay, it's Oklahoma again, and then. But like that could happen. That would be amazing. That game would be amazing if that happened.
That would be. I was thinking that we might be looking more at. I think is it the Cheez-It Bowl that Oregon played in last year against an ACC team, and we could have
was
like
it North Carolina.
Yes.
Yeah,
and you could
Oregon
have two
played North Carolina, but was it in the? I can't remember if it was in the Cheez-It Bowl or it was a different bowl.
Or maybe the Duke's Mayo, one of those two. Although I have a feeling that we would have remembered Dan Lanning getting Mayo poured all over his head.
No, last year the Duke's Mayo Bowl was Maryland. Maryland beat someone in the Duke's Mayo Bowl last year, and the year before it was Wisconsin because Graham Mertz won the Mayo Bowl. I remember.
Jeez. I'm glad you remember the important stuff.
Yes, these are the important things.
I think it is the Cheez-It Bowl. Whatever bowl that is, it would just be a great dynamic of Riley versus Riley and, 4-loss disappointment against 4-loss disappointment.
Yeah.
Or maybe 5-loss disappointment versus 5-loss disappointment. All right. As my wife is coming home, you'll hear the dogs barking soon in the background. Top team, Ryan, Oregon sneaks into the top 10. I think what happened there is they screwed around a little bit with Cal and then said, okay, we'll just score 60 on you guys and show you what a good afternoon is like. So I think that's what happened there.
Mm-hmm.
Although interestingly, to go back to the end, the players, Troy Franklin was higher, so they probably had a couple other guys really step up and goose that number up a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And again, a battle of top 10 teams between them and USC this week. Going to be some points scored in that game. I think we're pretty comfortable saying. Yeah. All right. Top GGABs, top running offenses. 3 new entrants here. Cincinnati, which is surprising because they lost again. I think they were kind of, who did they just play? Was it UCF?
Yeah, it was UCF. That's how UCF got their first conference win.
Okay. Interesting. So I guess they ran well, question mark. LSU, maybe that's a function of the Jaden Daniels injury, and they ran more. I didn't really see much of that game. I was too busy self-abusing.
Jaden Daniels also ran a ton too. So
yeah. There you go. And then Jacksonville State. Now this is really weird. This is kind of the secondary lesson. What is that saying against South Carolina when a Conference USA team, who's not, much as I like Jacksonville State and admire what they're doing, I don't think they're even going to make their conference title game. When you vault them into the top 10 in this graphic, I'm really concerned about what South Carolina is.
So the thing is, I'm not sure if you saw that game, but Jacksonville State was driving down the field that game with a chance to win and pick 6.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair, that sucked for me because I had a bunch of plus 600 Jacksonville State money lines, but I also had a bunch of plus 14.5s, plus 15, so that didn't matter for that, and I was like, I've won, now it's over. But at the same time, though, it's just when I first saw that, I was like, this sucks for my money line bets, but also if you're South Carolina, you should be terrified here that you needed a pick 6 to almost cover the spread, to still not cover the spread fully against a team that just came up from the FCS. That's a problem. And people are and I saw it. People are like, on the highlights, are like, South Carolina getting notching a win. I'm like, they needed a pick 6 to win by double digits against a team they are 15.5-point favorites against. Again, the review shows that they have no concept of spreads of mark. They're just that team A won, so therefore they're better. It's no, the team was a 15-point favorite. They won by 10 off of a pick 6.
No.
They
were in serious trouble. And not only were they in serious trouble, they were kind of passing at will with that. Let me go back here. I think he's in the top. He had to be.
Xavier Legette.
Yeah, this kid. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He just went nuts. He went absolutely
nuts.
Rattler
had 400. Yeah, they had 400 passing yards, and he was going nuts. And then I look at the scores, 28-28. I'm like, what? How is this? Yeah. South Carolina. There's some problems there.
Yeah. Without a doubt. All right. Bum list. Wow. A lot of new names here. In fairness to Mr. Wimsat, jumping in at number 3, it's no fun playing in the Big Ten East. They just played the best defense that we know in Ohio State. Hudson Card, kind of the same situation, although he just played Michigan. Josh Hoover, I was not aware that TCU was struggling so bad throwing the ball. I guess I also didn't know that... No, I've forgotten his name. Who was the quarterback at the beginning of the season? Morris.
Chandler Morris.
Yeah, I guess he's hurt. I must have missed that. TCU just went under the grid.
I think there are 3 quarterbacks down the depth chart right now.
Jeez. They lost that Colorado game and they just went completely off the grid.
Yeah.
Andrew Peasley of Wyoming, not a surprise, only that it took him so long to get here. Wyoming is not good throwing the ball. Ditto Eastern Michigan, who's kind of been, a leader on the other side for a while, and Jace Bauer, a new name, Central Michigan. Although, as we saw, unless somebody else was playing quarterback tonight, it looked like he had a pretty good game as we kind of were watching that out of the corner of our eye. Were you watching that one or the Buffalo game?
I was watching kind of both. So unfortunately, I did bet Buffalo plus 7. With Cole Snyder. And to be fair, I feel like that was the right side to that game because it was a very low-scoring game, and Buffalo actually almost had a chance to win that game. So
I'm sorry, wait, with who? I'm sorry, was it you put money on this guy right here? Is that?
Yeah, I regret that a little bit now.
Just to be clear, the one guy that's worse than Keegan Shoemaker.
The guy who's worse than everybody, yes. I did, in fact, put money on him. And the thing is, crazy enough, I feel like it was the right call. Because, like, they almost won that game, but then they lost by 10 and didn't cover the +7. But then also, yeah, Central Michigan was weirdly doing things, but then Western Michigan came in and finished off and just crushed them. But yeah, he was doing some stuff, but then luckily enough, Western Michigan got me the cover there, so that's pretty good. One thing I will say though about Rutgers and Ohio State in general, because it's funny because I've now seen people saying like, oh, why are we giving Ohio State the #1 overall ranking? They can't play on the road because they were actually, I think they were either losing or tied with Rutgers at the half, and then they went on and eventually actually covered the spread. So they actually covered the spread against Rutgers, and now I'm seeing stuff from media people like Ohio can't play on the road. You're expecting this team to go into Ann Arbor and beat Michigan. They can't do, but like they're forgetting the fact that okay, they played in Indiana. Indiana is apparently randomly good, depending on which week it is. They have now played in Rutgers, and Rutgers is actually pretty good. They forget that Michigan did not destroy Rutgers either. Rutgers actually has a pretty good defense. Penn State shut them down a bit because Penn State actually has a good defense too, but then Ohio State's defense shut them down. Like, I think people are so used to Ohio State hanging 40 to 50 points on people that when Ohio State now plays much, and the thing about Ohio State, one of the reasons why we liked them so much last year, and we said this a lot, was, okay, their offense is terrifying, but their defense is also really good too. Like, their defense was able to shut down a lot of teams last year. They didn't, like, when Ohio State would score a bunch of points, and then they wouldn't let up a lot of points either. And I think people forget that their defense was so good, and their defense is taking a step up, and their offense is taking a step back, but their offense is still, like, decent, and their defense is really good now. So, yes, this Ohio State team wins in different ways, but I think when you have that expectation of Ohio State's going to go out there and score 50 every week, and then they don't do that, you're like, what's wrong with Ohio State? And Ohio State's going to be out for blood against Michigan in a couple of weeks. I think Ohio State has basically nothing left. I think they have like 2 functional bye weeks, I believe. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, like, they have a really, really good defense. Like, that game is going to be close, and they're going to, like, if I'm Ryan Day, I'm building an entirely brand new signal tree. I'm starting now, and we are not going to use that signal tree until we play Michigan, and that's going to be the first time we ever use it, and that's it. And I think that's a very winnable path for them. I think they can, like, first of all, like, I've been betting a lot of Ohio State to win the Big Ten for a couple of reasons, because I suspect there's going to be some punishment levied on Michigan, and that could theoretically affect their ability to win the Big Ten. I think people are kind of severely underrating that. There could be some sort of suspension on Harbaugh. There could be something, and I think that something could impact their ability to win the Big Ten regardless. But, like, also, I just think Ohio State can win the Big Ten, and I think that if you've got that game as even, and you're now and basically you're like, I also think I think Ohio State can actually just beat Michigan, then that's the thing. Also, Michigan plays Penn State this week too. They could lose that game as well. So lots of different things to take into account when you're evaluating Ohio State here.
Yeah, a couple of things. I think it was 2 weeks ago I did that graphic on the incredibly tough pass defenses that McCord has faced over the last month. And since then, he's faced, I forget who they played 2 weeks ago, but Rutgers. I think Rutgers was in the top 10 in my pass defenses actually going into that game. So I want to update that graphic before, the week of Michigan, Ohio State, because that would be really instructive. Remember that I think McCord's average opponent had an average defensive apex of like 74, which probably is lower now after throwing Rutgers in there. And McCarthy had faced at that time, I think the average pass defense was literally 100. So he'd faced literally an average FBS defense for this year. So it'll be interesting to see how that ages. Mm-hmm. All right. What do we got next here? A defensive apex. Here we go. Rutgers #9, just on that topic. Yeah. So that's, I don't know. Let's just look here real quick. Which of these teams has Michigan faced? Any of them? I don't believe so.
Rutgers.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So that's one. Yep. Okay. So yeah, I think that Delta's still going to be there. Clemson jumps into the top 10, oddly facing good against bad defenses, Notre Dame. SMU just kind of just kicking it on all cylinders now, defense and offense. Now pass defense, they jump into the top 10 here. And I don't know if Toledo had been there before, but the strength of their team had really been offense so far. Although I think this is on the strength of, not to pick on you on that, I'm going against Cole Snyder last week. That was the game last week, right? That actually happened, I think, right before our pod or during the pod, the Toledo Buffalo game. I think it was Tuesday of last week.
Yeah, Toledo Buffalo was during the pod. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that awesome Cole Snyder performance threw Toledo to the top 10 here. No surprises, I'm guessing. Any comments?
No, that's roughly what I expect. Again, a lot of Big Ten teams there.
Yeah. All right, the top run defenses. 3 new teams at the bottom. Texas, not surprising. They've got a really good defensive line. I mean, Pittsburgh, just literally nothing surprises you with Pittsburgh anymore. Maybe you feel differently. I mean, they could just literally, there's no explaining any Narduzzi team. And Tennessee's had a good go ahead.
Yeah, well, with Pittsburgh, they somehow covered the spread against Florida State. And they somehow covered the spread against Florida State while Jordan Travis threw for 300 yards.
Mm-hmm. Having said that, I cringe every time there's a number that's close to telling me that I have to bet on Pitt. I don't want to do it. I just don't want to do it.
I refuse. I'm done. And the best part, the nice thing is we only have a couple more weeks because they're not making a bowl, right? So that's it. So it's
I don't know. I don't think they're going to sneak into the ACC title game. Not sure about that, but
you never know.
Yeah, and just wrap it up.
How far away? I'll check how far Pitt is away from a bowl game. You wrap it up. Yeah.
Let me see there. Jesus, they're 2-7 overall. They're done.
Yeah, they're done. Right. Yeah, okay, thank God. Okay, we don't have to worry about a bowl spread for them. That's it.
And then just wrap this one up. Tennessee, they've had a good defense. We were again early on them. They jumped in our top 15s long before everybody else, and it kind of felt it was weird. It was the same week that they jumped in, so it was kind of nice mutual confirmation of each other's polls there. So, not a surprise, and it was really their defense first that got them up there that high. All right. Want to dig into some games and figure out what we do or do not know?
Yeah. So
all right. Please.
Okay,
so jump in on SMU?
Yeah, we'll jump in here. North Texas is like the most confounding team. They are, I think they're two? They also have like 2 wins, I think, right?
3-6.
3-6. So this North Texas team is so weird. I don't understand. They go from like, okay, we're going to win games to then barely losing games. Like they lost by 8. They lost, I think, to Memphis last week by either a touchdown or a field, like either by 4 or 3 points. I can't remember if it was a last-second touchdown or a field goal. But we've been on them the last couple of weeks. They pushed last week against
Memphis.
Whoever they played. No, they didn't play Memphis last week. Who they play last week? I don't remember who they played, but it's whoever they played. They pushed. It was an 8-point spread, and they pushed the 8. But now they're at SMU 17. I've got this game, I think, even. No, North Texas -1. And I'm getting 17. So, and again, last week, Rice played SMU pretty close. They kind of showed me up there. So, I don't hate North Texas here. I think this SMU team might be a little overvalued. This North Texas team is actually pretty good as well. I don't hate North Texas here.
Yeah, they pushed against UTSA. That's who you're thinking of. North Texas did.
Yeah.
Your thinking is right along with mine. I kind of gave you the professor scolding the student who just didn't pay attention. I had a deeper dive on SMU, and I said, look, they literally play the 4 easiest teams in the American, and they're not playing world beaters, but they're going to step up the competition. And my guy Robert said, I like SMU this week. So not to pick on you, but I think that there's, I think this is one of those classic group of 5. The market doesn't know this. I see this as a weak analog and much lesser version of the fall of Marshall, where Marshall just had that early season cakewalk and it was just, it was bound to regress. I don't see SMU losing. But I think that close call against Rice was probably a little more what they are. And I think you're going to see the same. I don't see North Texas winning this one, but they are confounding. The whole American just has really been tough for me this season. As much as I've loved Conference USA, just the opposite of what I'm going to call Conference. I called them Conference USA Plus before the season. I might call them Conference USA Minus now.
Yeah.
The American's been tough, but I think SMU is going to be, again, not as strong as the market thinks here, and just I think they win but don't cover, just like last week. So we're of the same mind here. That's almost like we rehearsed that, but we did not.
No, we did not.
The next one, Michigan giving Fort Penn State. I think is this still? Yeah, it's still 4.5. Okay, yeah, maybe 5 at some places I'm seeing here. I guess my first thought was, as I saw this number, I thought this is going to go up to 5.5 or so, or maybe even 6. There's got to be some kind of like sentiment about, at some point it's going to be, I'm just thinking the market's going to say, it's James Franklin. What are we doing here? Why is this, just over a field goal? On the other hand, maybe there's some uncertainty about Harbaugh, and if he's going to be coaching, maybe that's kind of keeping this number down artificially.
That's honestly, that was my thought too. When I saw that 4.5, because I saw 7s and I saw like a 6.5, and then I saw 4.5, and I'm like, are they? But it's weird because they're penciling in Harbaugh not coaching this game, but at the same time they're penciling in, like, they still have Michigan as favorites to win the Big Ten. So which one is it? Is Michigan, is Harbaugh at risk of being suspended before this game, or is he not? Like, are they gonna suspend him for one game and just mess everything up? I don't know. I have Michigan here as like 15-point favorites, which is actually kind of, I think, similar to, that's roughly what Ohio State beat Penn State by. I don't know. I on one hand, the problem is now we have to kind of start. See, this is the issue, right? We now we have to kind of question ourselves with Michigan, right? Because our models, we can't account for or detect the cheating that they were doing, right? Like, in our model, you stop your opponent completely. Our model's like, that's a great play, good job. But in real life, it was like, well, they did that because they knew what they were about to do. They knew they were about to run left, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in that case,
to a degree, that helps. We don't know how much. That's the other trick.
I mean, again, you have to stop. Like, someone's running towards you, you have to physically stop him, right? And even on a passing play, it's like, okay, it's a passing play. Well, they have multiple receiving options, right? So like, you can still. It's more complex than that, but again, that gives a significant boost, and we have no way to account for that. And again, Penn State and Ohio State would be teams that if Michigan knew what they were going to do, and if that was the problem, that's why they had been able to win those games, then you would expect something along the lines of Penn State would be able to beat Michigan. And like, for that reason, part of me wants to play Penn State here because I think that, but then maybe we could be at another point where people are like, they're trying to overbet that angle too, right? They're like, Michigan is bad because, I don't know. It's very hard for me to say, but I kind of think it's just like, we just kind of stay away from this game. That's my thought on it. The spread is too short. It's suspiciously short. But on the other hand, though, if like, again, now I saw this on Sunday. It's now Tuesday, about to be Wednesday. There was rumors that the Big Ten talked to Michigan on Monday. If they're about to suspend Harbaugh, it's happening like tomorrow or Thursday latest, right? So if they suspend him, this 4.5 suddenly goes the other way. It's then Penn State minus 4.5, right? So, or something like that. I don't know the exact number, but it's probably something along those lines.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to see. I would think it maybe not be that much.
Well, what fine, okay. How many points is Harbaugh worth?
Begets another question: how many points is Connor Stalions worth? I mean, there's kind of against a good team versus Purdue. No offense to our guy Arzea. I don't think they need his help versus Purdue as much as it's help versus a team like a Penn State. I think it'd probably go to maybe probably maybe like a 4-point swing, maybe to like about pick. The other thing that sticks out to me is I'm looking at this. I actually have this about a field goal game. The thing that's just a huge difference. These are both elite defensive teams. Like when I did the graphic on the top defenses, just the offense of Michigan is so much better than the weak squad on this is really the Penn State offense. That I think is where you're going to see the struggles. And I don't, boy, if you just kind of say that out loud, what's the first thing you think of? It's like the same struggles that Penn State had versus Ohio State and versus Ohio State last year. It kind of seems like that's almost their personality now.
Well, see, this is where this is why I see what the model is saying with Michigan minus 15, because it's basically saying like we have, because it's similar to what happened with Ohio State, right? Ohio State basically completely shut them down on offense. And even to a lesser extent, when Penn State played a good defensive team, even when they played Iowa, their offense struggled to some degree. Now, it wasn't that bad, but a lot of those points were very substantially helped by Iowa doing nothing on offense, right? You pin Iowa deep,
What?
and Iowa goes 0-3, and they punt it back to you, then you get some pretty short fields there, right? Now, I remember watching that game, and it was like, okay, yeah, Penn State won 30-0. It was a pretty beleaguered 30-0, if that even makes like that's kind of an insane thing to say, but like it's true though. Like it was kind of like, yeah, okay, we'll score a touchdown or we'll kick a field. Like it's just like, okay, yeah, we'll like there wasn't much
Well,
resistance, and eventually we'll score, right?
yeah, I
And
think it's a lot. Yeah, probably a bad analog might be Utah just crushing Arizona State with our guy Jacob Conover literally, having a Grayson James type of game and just no first downs and just refusing to hold on to the ball at all and just giving the ball back immediately, give him every chance possible. I think that there's probably a decent analog to that.
yeah, and I think that's the point, and I think there is a like. If Harbaugh isn't suspended and this line is still under 6.5 by Friday, you take it. Thursday, Friday,
Yeah.
like if Harbaugh's not suspended tomorrow, you take this line and you take an alt line to get this up to like alt 6.5, alt 9.5, maybe even alt 13.5.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Next game. I just thought I might be missing something here with this. This line looks suspiciously short. I can't say it's the line that stinks out loud because I don't really have that much faith in Texas Tech. I have this Kansas by 11. You have it by 10. So,
I got
are we
12.9, but yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah, you're right. Is there some Jason Bean uncertainty baked into this?
I don't
what are we,
so.
Is there anything that we're missing? I don't know. I mean,
is it a different Texas Tech quarterback? Maybe I don't. I mean, again, Tyler Shuck's been down for the second. Tyler Shuck's down with injury for the second straight year, so that's not great for them. But yeah, it's like I like Kansas. Now the thing is, to be fair, I think this is underlooking Kansas because Kansas went to Iowa State last week and they were 3-point underdogs and they won outright. So I remember I saw that line and I'm like, okay, something's off. I'm not touching it, but like we were right. Kansas won that game pretty handily. So maybe the market's just low on Kansas right now. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know based on what. I mean, Texas Tech what's their record like? Are they 3-6?
4-5.
I mean, just wonder yeah. I mean, it's not there's a huge divergence between their record and my metrics. I mean, I don't show them good on any side of the ball. I mean, they're just basically kind of a whatever team. It's kind of like South Carolina without Spencer Rattler and Xavier Legette. And then you've got Kansas with a really nice offense on the other side, a top 20, literally an elite one. If you're over 9, basically you're bettable on overplays. Okay. I think that, I hate to say this because these are always famous last words. I think we're just ahead of the market in a Power 5 game. I guess. Okay. Georgia Tech at Clemson minus 14.5. And I see this, and let me update this line. I don't know if this has moved since. What do we have on there now? 14.5. My first question is, should Clemson be giving 14.5 to anybody, let alone a top 20 offense?
Yeah, I don't know about that. Let me just see if I find the line here. Yeah, 14 and a half. I actually have 19 and a half is the spread. So
Yeah, you do.
I my model weirdly likes Clemson, and to be fair, it liked it last week, so I'm not really doubting it. I just don't know if it's a good thing to bet. It is an early Saturday game, but Georgia Tech has done weird things. So I don't. I just think there's better things to bet than this. I'll just leave this alone.
Yeah, I've got this by 8.5. That seems like a lot for, I don't know. Maybe the market bought stock low when Dabo told him to. It's as simple as that. we're just
Maybe.
we're just late to that transaction. All right, Arizona giving 10 at Colorado. Um, it just feels a little frothy to me in terms of all of a sudden Arizona is getting like a lot of respect, and I don't know if it's proper respect or too much respect. Let's see what I've got this at. I have this basically 3.5. You have this 6. Um,
Yeah. The
and you
thing is,
actually, yeah, you have decay in your model, so whatever recency should be kind of baked into your number. So I think there is a bit of froth, maybe like top 25 froth in here.
I feel like this is now people saying Colorado was actually bad all the way along, and that they're now the Colorado's bad. And the thing is, like, you know what? And I actually mentioned it in our last podcast. Remember, Arizona was starting to go on that really good run, and then they beat Stanford by 3 or something. And the thing is, Colorado, they need another 2. They got to win 2 out of 3 to get to a bowl game. Hell, they actually have to get 1 win to get over 4.5 wins. They're actually they're 4 and I think 5 right now. So like Colorado needs the win. They need that. They need that win. Like they need a win this week. If not, they're in trouble because they still have. Let me just call them up super quick here. Uh, yeah, Colorado's got 4 and 5. They got Arizona, Washington State, and Utah. So there is no gimmies there. Maybe Washington State or whatever's left of Washington State by second last week of the season. Um, but no, it's like like the thing is if Colorado has any magic left, like and it's funny because a lot of people panned uh, Colorado for basically relieving their offensive coordinator and putting in Pat Shermer.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I was one of those people. I actually forgot Pat Shermer was the offensive coordinator for the Denver Broncos, and that was a horrible Denver Broncos team. Or no, was he the head coach? No, he was the head coach, right? No, yeah, he was the head coach of the Denver Broncos team. That they fired him and put in Nathaniel Hackett, and then he was horrible too. So I don't remember like he did not do good as the head coach of the Denver Broncos or offensive coordinator or whatever. But now, and the thing is, I panned it too. But guess what? They actually covered the spread, and now it was a garbage cover, of course, but they actually did cover the spread. So maybe there is some sense to this. Maybe this makes some sense. I kind of also think that like I don't know. I feel like coaches make the right moves even though we don't necessarily know. Like I think we're like, oh, he's a good offensive coordinator, and that could be fine. But I think that like if a head coach is making a move on an offensive coordinator, they know maybe they know more than we know or something, or I don't know. I find generally that when they do something with a coordinator, they generally don't make the wrong move. If that makes sense. So I don't know. I think at some point Colorado's going to win. Colorado's lost a couple of games straight. They need 2 wins to get a bowl. This seems like a perfect spot for them to get a win here. So I think they might sneak this win.
Yeah, I think maybe this is. I'm just going to run the numbers here. So 2.8, that's about 40. Yeah, maybe this is what's driving that number a little higher is that that offensive performance from an expected points perspective was almost their worst of the season. Only UCLA and Oregon were worse, and those are literally 2 of the top 20 defenses. Oregon State's not a top 20 defense, so maybe there's a bit of a bit of Shermer skepticism that's bumping that number up a little bit more.
True. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, App State at Georgia State -3. What I'm taking away from this is kind of the secondary learning is, again, to pat myself on the back, App State's coming off a huge blowout win over Marshall. And I think my takeaway here is, yeah, you had a huge win and now you're a dog to Georgia State, who's a nice team. Basically blowing out Marshall gets you nothing in terms of credit with the market. So
Yeah.
kind of how you see that one too?
Yeah, I got Georgia State -19 here. So no illusions here of what's about to, my model has no illusions here of what's about to happen. I kind of think that it's like, I think people are like, oh, App State might be back. Like, I feel like App State is like a weirdly public team. I think there are certain G5 teams that are public teams, and App State's definitely one of them. And I think people are like, oh, App State's back. They figured it out. They crushed Marshall. It's like, actually, no, they didn't. They just beat a bad team, right? And that's why. And Georgia State's actually good. Like, Georgia State's one of those teams that like no one will bet on, but like they're actually a good team. So, yeah, Georgia State. I'll take Georgia State -3 here.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this next one is the line that stinks this week.
Yeah.
If you just ask
here.
just a kind of a, I'd say an avid fan that doesn't bet at all, what do you think they would set the line at? Probably something like 10 or 11?
10, yeah. Like 9.5, 10 easily.
So I saw this and I think it stinks. And then you've actually got this pretty much as the right number. I actually have UCF by 9.5 here.
I've got UCF -3.
Oh, did I put that backwards? Yeah, it's because you transposed the home and visitor compared to mine. Okay. Oh, well, hey, you know what? Okay.
Is that a combined model play?
Yeah. Now it is. And not only that, it's going to be a wrong team favored. So we need to. Yeah, that's not going to be in the graphic, but I will when we get there. I'll just reemphasize that.
We discovered one live.
And UCF's been a disappointment, and I basically pointed out, Plumlee still hasn't beaten a team that was Power 5 last season with that big win over Cincinnati. This doesn't make sense to me, but I guess the offense is the strongest unit here is UCF's offense, and I guess that in the home field. And admittedly, UCF is not an easy place to play, and especially for a game like this when Oklahoma State, now they're ranked and they're coming off two big back-to-back wins. I think that's going to be an especially hostile place. That's the kind of place where it's harder to win the better that you are as a visiting team.
Yeah, that line's down to 2.5 now. This is
okay.
And the thing is, here's the thing: you may have forgotten this, but if Oklahoma State loses this game and Kansas wins, and then Kansas beats Kansas State,
yeah,
like that ticket is still very much alive.
There's a path. Yep.
Yeah, there's definitely a path, and especially if Texas blows it because they want to. Like, you could tell they want to blow a game somewhere. If they blow it,
yeah, that's it.
Like if
they blow it, there's it's a possibility. All right. I am usually one. I'll put it this way, not to generalize. It seems that I react much less to a single game than you do, and maybe I'm just kind of reversing course here. I don't see how Arkansas is giving only 2.5 to Auburn. Now, Arkansas's had a rough season, but man, they changed offensive coordinators, and maybe this is also just kind of near and dear to me because I was crapping on Dan Enos basically from before the season, and I pointed out for weeks and weeks and weeks, the offense stinks, the offense sucks, the offense is not working, and then they fire him, and they had by far their best offensive game last week at the Swamp. Not an easy place to play, even when Florida's having a down season. Maybe Auburn got a great look and they know what Kenny Guyton is doing on offense better than Florida did. Maybe that's a little fairness to Florida. But, man, they were so much better. Now, maybe there's some regression here, but Auburn's offense is so freaking bad, too. I can't see this as close. And I don't, I don't know if this is too much respect for Auburn plus a little bit of a disrespect for Kenny Guyton or just not understanding how much of a difference he makes. Or maybe I'm too
I
optimistic on that.
To be fair, I do have Auburn favored, but I feel like maybe this one and combine that with the Arizona one, the books are kind of either over or undercompensating for coordinator changes, right? So, I mean, from difference from my model doesn't really impact coordinators, at least not yet. It might in the future, but um, basically, you're looking at a difference of 5 in Arizona and then 5-ish, maybe 6, closer to 6 in this game for a difference coordinator. That seems low. But I think Arizona and, well, Colorado is whatever, right? But it's it's I don't know. I do like Arkansas here. I think Arkansas, like, they were like one. I think I'm of the mind that Florida is actually like not bad, even though they are. I think what 4-6. No, 4-5 now. Um, Florida is not bad, but I think they need some help to make a bowl. Oh no, sorry, they're 5-4. They just need one win, and they have that's right, they have LSU, Missouri, and Florida State. So that's yeah, that was the game they needed to win to get to a bowl. And now, to be fair, Missouri, stuff happens with Missouri. Watch for Missouri. Like, that's the one where Florida could beat Missouri. Not only they're going to beat Florida State, and they're probably not going to beat LSU. But like there is a path there for Florida to get to a bowl. We'll see. But yeah, I think I think Arkansas should be able to win this one.
Yeah. And then lastly, kind of the other side of the App State play is Georgia Southern giving only 2.5 at Marshall. I don't actually have that. My model doesn't have this as a play. I didn't take your number. I don't know what you would have this as. Maybe you've got.
I apparently have minus 42.9.
Okay.
That's the biggest spread I have on the board.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think because you've got, clearly I don't need to restate the case, but again, I've just got cumulative, equally weighted, and you've got more, decay, and I think that's the quickly deteriorating situation that is Marshall is more accurately reflected in your model than mine. So I'm going to make a little mark here to remind myself to grab the Eagles, Clay Helton's Eagles, because what USC fan doesn't love to bet on Clay Helton? All right. That will bring us to my deeper dive of the week. I've referred to this a couple times more in part 1 than part 2 this week. And last week we talked about this too, about the committee, and just how little faith I think I have in them. And to be fair, I wanted to just understand exactly how well-founded this opinion was. So I basically dug into the backgrounds of the committee members, and I put them into 2 groups here. This first group I've called instilling confidence, although it's kind of a mixed bag, but this is the better group of the committee members. Chris Alt, I remember him as a very successful head coach at Nevada. You can see his record there, conference champ 9 times. Mitch Barnhart, I give him a good grade as an AD when it comes to football. He hired very successful Rich Brooks and Mark Stoops. His Joker Phillips hire was not as successful. Boo Corrigan, the AD at NC State, I give him a thumbs up because he hired Jeff Monken at Army, basically the best coach that they've ever had. Jim Grobe, my gosh, you know what? If you take Wake Forest to the 2007 Orange Bowl at Wake Forest, I have faith in you. Ward Manuel, the Michigan AD, I was a little bit out on as he inherited Jim Harbaugh and really hasn't had to do anything. He did play for Michigan, so I'm kind of giving him he's okay. This is a little bit of a learning exercise. I didn't know this David Saylor. He is apparently the AD at Miami of Ohio. He hired Chuck Martin, who's had, I think, 1 or 2 conference titles, and he's lasted for 10 years. Which is kind of good, although that's a little bit too long for Mac. I think at some point you want your coach to move on for a better job if he's really good. Will Shields, you know what? He was he was literally, when I was still an NFL fan, like the best offensive lineman in the NFL for years. I'm going to give him an okay, even though I don't know how much that will make him recognize really who needs to be number 5 versus number 7. Um, Gene Taylor, the AD at Kansas State, he hired Chris Kleeman, which is an awesome hire. So I'm saying he's okay. Joe Taylor, I'd never heard of. He's the athletic director at Virginia Union. This was interesting. I learned a lot about him. This guy deserves some respect. He used to be a coach before he was an AD at 3 or 4 different historically black colleges, universities. He has 5 national championships. His career record of 232 and 96. So I think these people kind of have the bona fides in terms of, yeah, they know the game. What do we see, or what do we not see, is basically anybody that I think would have any kind of like actual, like, numerical understanding or quantification. I think that's one of the concerns I really have is, and I don't know these people, but I just don't see any background here where somebody would say, well, wait a minute, committee, you're telling me to use these metrics to evaluate, but how do we know these are the best metrics to use? Because they do have some, but I don't know if there's just the mathematical horsepower to really push back and say, well, wait, why X versus Y in terms of the metrics that we are using? And these are the ones that are the better of the group. Go on, please.
Yeah, that's the thing. The argument there is that I kind of feel like, because again, ESPN, the ESPN does own the college football playoff committee, right? And I feel like they basically shove these people in a room in, I'm assuming, a Marriott somewhere. They give them, I'm assuming, printouts. Maybe they've made it better looking charts. I don't know. They give them some like ESPN FPI charts and say, "Go at it, have fun."
Yeah.
And the thing is, to be fair, there are worse ways to do it, using the AP and the coaches poll, but this is not necessarily that much better, because I feel like you're like, well, we gave them data. They have the ESPN FPI or whatever. And it's like, okay, but there's every metric is flawed. Like, you cannot find a flawless metric, period. Even our metrics are flawed, and we know that, and we understand. Like, we say, oh, we like this metric for this reason, but you know what? It doesn't take into account this. But you're just like, here's a list of numbers, go nuts. Here's strength of schedule. Like, well, how's that calculated? I don't know. And like, you know what? Like, these guys are good. Like, these are really successful head coaches, some successful ADs. I do question if someone whose job it is just to hire or fire someone based off of on-field performance, or I guess sideline performance, whether or not they're necessarily the best person to decide who's the best team. That's kind of a bit of an odd thing, because that's not really what their job was. But okay, sure. Maybe, I guess. But it's just, you would want more mathematical rigor from this, and I think that definitely makes a lot of sense. And I think they're just giving them some numbers and being like, go nuts, and then they're like, well, this number says this, so clearly this team is better. It's like, well, or like, well, this strength of schedule says this, or like, they've beaten more ranked teams. Like, well, that's a useless metric, because the initial ranking as we concede every week was flawed. We're like, this ranking is wrong. And therefore, if you're like, well, they beat more ranked teams, like, well, that team should have been ranked, or that team should have been ranked even higher, right? So there's a lot of that where it's like, this doesn't, and again, like, it's funny when they show that graphic of, because again, the number 1 versus number 2, Ohio State 1, Georgia number 2, they say that they're doing strength of schedule, which is what we believe to be functionally just team ranked wins. And it's funny that they say Ohio State has the toughest strength of schedule, which, to be fair, I do believe it does, generally. But their argument is, well, they have the higher strength of schedule because they've beaten 2 ranked teams and Georgia's only beaten 1 ranked team, which, that's a fair argument, but I don't know necessarily that's like a mathematically rigorous argument. Like, there's better ways you could do that, right? Like, I think they've beaten Florida, they've beaten Tennessee. No, Georgia hasn't played Tennessee yet, but like, Georgia beat Florida, Georgia beat someone else, right? Like, there's, again, we adjust all of our stats, right? Like, we adjust things for strength of schedule and all this stuff. Like, they don't do that. They're just like, well, this team was ranked 25th and they beat them, so therefore it counts as a ranked win. It's like, well, not really, right? So, I don't know. There's a lot of flaws with, like, I think you should have more stats people on here rather than more like, and that's not saying these people have no value. I like, again, these are really good coaches, and if I was ever making a college team, I'd go to these guys to figure out who I should hire as a coach, or to coach my team. But if I'm trying to figure out what the top 4 teams in the country are, I don't think necessarily they're the most qualified to figure that out.
Yeah. Really good points. Not in small part because you agree with me. A few things. When you talk about the ranked wins, a couple of problems there. Does that mean if a team had beaten JMU, it wouldn't count for anything, or it'd count for less because they're not ranked? That's why I think they need to rank JMU, just to have that kind of placeholder.
So where is JMU ranked then, right?
Yeah. I mean, and the other thing too is, I think that when they talk about this, because I think there's a lack of outside kind of objective criteria that you can really grasp onto. I think this whole ranked wins thing is very much a self-contained argument. It's almost when you just tell your 2-year-old because mommy said so. You don't really you can't get into it. I think they just kind of get into that because this is not their day job. I don't know if they use ESPN FPI, but that's a really good example. I can't tell you, you see there's a lot of overlap, but some of the differences between, models. ESPN FPI, just when they're wrong, they're just wrong on absurd stuff. I just see some of their percentage of likelihood wins, and I'm just thinking, who's the idiot that's not checking this? Literally, sometimes it strikes me as something that's put together by a person who doesn't understand football and doesn't understand, all right, we're missing something here. I can't, there's just results that are just not their predictions here. They're just not conceptually correct.
I think whatever the ESPN FPI is, it has, and again, this ties into why they're not ranking Liberty. And again, I don't even know where they'd rank JMU. I don't think they'd rank if they're not ranking Liberty. I don't think they're going to rank JMU that highly either. And again, when you see some of those like ESPN win probabilities, it is very, very heavily conference based. It is like, this conference is better than this conference, therefore a team from this conference should destroy a team from the, like, you can see their conference hierarchy ranking. And again, I have no idea what that, like, we've done our conference rankings, and we were like, for a while, they're like, yeah, the Pac-12 is better than the SEC. I guarantee you theirs didn't say that. That definitely is not true, right? So, like, ours was a dynamic system that you could, I mean, okay, this is one, we didn't have like pages of data to show up, but like we could theoretically show people this is how we calculate it and this is how we do it. But like theirs is a black box. I have no idea how they do it, and I suspect a lot of the people, and you're gonna, I think you have other people you're gonna talk about. I don't think those people are like, hey, how do you calculate that? By the way, like, can you show us some math? Like, no, they did not do that. No.
This is the good list. Also, I don't think you've ever explicitly said this. My goal is I don't want to be able to predict every game. I think if you do, you're going to have overfit, and it's not going to be really anything other than just a very circumstantial set of parameters that's going to suck once you get 2 more weeks worth of data in there. I bring that up because, I consider my model really good. My goal is to ideally be able to find enough games where there's enough variance that I can win 60% of the time against the market total or the market spread, and that's it. And it's predictive in basically identifying where those gaps are, and all the fallout is nicely predictive as well. But again, that's for a success rate of, ideally 60%. So I'm going to be wrong a lot. That's why you need lots and lots and lots of models, not some suspect. And I don't know if it's ESPN FPI, but I would suspect that it's something along the lines of that, rather than something that's, me, you, K Ford, everything that's in that Nate Manzo composite. That's what's needed. And it basically, again, the shame of it is these people don't even know what they don't know, let alone how to ask the question that they don't know to ask. Mm-hmm. And having said that, now let's get to, the real dark side of this. So the 4 that give me serious concerns. Hey, guess what? If you're an AD and I've talked to you about you on this podcast before, it's probably not good news. And that's this Chet Gladchuk guy. He hired Dana Dimmel to Houston in 2000. Mr. Dimmel went 8-26, doing an awesome job at UTEP now, he said sarcastically. he actually made two good hires in Paul Johnson and Ken Niumatalolo at Navy, which has been completely undone by the absolutely farcical firing. And this is before I met you. I met you at the end of the 21 season. I don't know if you remember, in that season, they fired offensive coordinator Ivan Jasper, and he was forced to rehire him like a day later as quarterback coach in the 21 season. And Mr. Jasper is still on the squad, even though Ken Niumatalolo got fired. So read into that what you will, how stupid that move was by Gladchuck. And when he fired Niumatalolo, as I mentioned in part one, he replaced him with failed defensive coordinator Brian Newberry, who, if E.J. Warner ever gets an NFL contract, I'm pretty sure Brian Newberry gets 5% of his first contract, because he's been that instrumental in pushing his career along. Didn't know this guy, but I know him now. Mark Harlan, the AD at Utah. You see, Utah, good at football. Well, guess what? This Dunn's hired Charlie Strong at South Florida in 2017. If that's not a disqualifying event on your resume, I don't know what is. I mean, do you know anybody? I know this is, 6 or 7 years ago. I didn't know a single person that knew football that said that's a sharp hire. That's going to work out. And this is from somebody who likes to give second chances to coaches that were in bad positions. I was super skeptical. And when he won those first 10 games, literally everybody I know that knows this game said it's a matter of time. He's living on borrowed time. And man, when it fell apart, I think that he Charlie Strong, that 2018 season, when it went down the elevator shaft, that's when I came up with the down the elevator shaft term as relates to college football.
Yeah, that one is, again, but the thing is, you can see, and the thing is, luckily enough with Utah, he doesn't have to do anything. He's got his head coach, he's good, right? Just sit there, do nothing, right? Collect your paycheck, you're good, right? But to be fair, the argument you can make for the coaching hire at USF was, hey, he just got fired by Texas. That was Texas' head coach, and you know what? Maybe he couldn't cut it at Texas, but he could cut it here, and then that didn't work, right? And to be fair, that's actually kind of similar with Tom Herman now at FAU, but there was a reason why Charlie Strong. To be fair, there was a reason why Charlie Strong was fired, and there's a reason why Tom Herman was fired. The reason Charlie Strong was fired was because he was bad at his job. The reason Tom Herman was fired was because he wasn't going to win a national championship. Those are two different reasons why someone is fired. And the thing is, you could be okay with didn't win a national championship at Texas if you're FAU, but being bad at your job is not. Oh, he was bad at Texas. He'd maybe be better at USF. Like, no, that's not how that works.
Well, yeah, and I hate to bring. I'm going to say I hate to bring in this parallel like this, but I kind of secretly love it. They'll say, hey, every time you meet an awesome girl that's available, just remember there's some guy that thinks that she's horrible and let her go. And I kind of bring that up here because I don't know for sure, but I have a strong suspicion that Mr. Harlan looked at Charlie Strong and said, hey, he coached at Texas. You know what? They're paying for most of his contract. We could probably get a really good deal here, a good bang for our buck. I would be shocked if that wasn't part of the process and the consideration. And it's South Florida. It's not a poorly resourced program. Just, F for that. That's disqualifying. Not disqualifying, but completely mystifying is, hey, I'm an executive with a company called Entergy Corp, and I'm the Sugar Bowl president. Put me on the committee. Excuse me?
I don't know. First of all, so as I've grown up with college football and followed it through these years, I was shocked that there was a need for a president of these bowls. I'm like, what do they do? Like the games are picked for them. What does this person do? 364
and ESPN owns the bowl.
Days.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's some logistics, but you know what? You've got that in the ESPN infrastructure.
Like what logistics? Like, we know where the Sugar Bowl is going to be held. I guess you pick a date, but that's kind of determined, like, within a time frame. Okay, but
you know what?
Like,
yeah.
We're gonna pay, and these people are not earning like. It's not like, we'll pay you $10,000. It's like, no. These people are earning like six figures to do nothing. Like, this.
Well in the six figures. Honestly, honestly, this is not hyperbole. They should pick one bowl and just say, you know what? You don't have a president. We're going to do this all via artificial intelligence, and let's see what breaks.
Yeah.
And they should actually call it the AI bowl just to go full bore on it.
It's just run by a artificial. That'd be funny. That'd be so funny.
And I bet it could happen without a problem. So maybe the thought there is, hey, this guy was smart enough to finagle his way to a job that pays $300,000 a year to wear a strangely colored blazer and shake a few hands. Clearly, he deserves to be on the committee. As does apparently, the person who's now, in middle of November saying, hey guys, you know what? Jalen Milrow's a good quarterback. Those national dopes. Well, they have one of their own on here. This person, Kelly Whiteside, who was a national college football writer for USA Today. I cannot think of a single profession that I will want less on this committee than that. Literally, these dopes that'll say, hey, so-and-so went to school X and school X is now open. I'm sure he's a candidate for the job. No, he stinks. He's stupid. These same guys that come up with these dumb ideas, you got one of their own on this committee. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
I mean, it's funny because and to be fair, I work with politics a lot, and there are I know a lot of reporters. I know a lot of good reporters. And at the same time, I know a lot of reporters that they cover politics and they should not. And to be fair, a lot of them are actually American. A lot of the American political commentators are just like, no, this person, I don't know how they got this job. I don't know why they're covering American politics, but they should not be. And it's the same thing. It's there's no equivalent to the CFP for politics, but if there was, I think some journalists, yes, but I think just start picking random journalists, and it's no. But I just again, there's nothing on data here. There's just a guy who runs a bowl. That's why he's on the committee. I don't understand.
No.
Nothing. There's no data here. Still no data analytics, right? So.
Yeah, I don't even know if what fear I have more is that these people are driving some points and making cases for some teams, or they're just empty votes that are just kind of sit there and just told to vote this way or that way. I don't know which is better. Just, I don't get any of these people being on it. Literally, I don't know. It must be truly a thankless task where they can't get enough people for the committee. I don't know. But so there's your feel good session about the committee. And if you're wondering why there's a stupid thing like Liberty's not ranked, here's your answer. Because the dope that wrote for USA Today wouldn't know Liberty if Jamie Chadwell, got his, what do you call that stupid haircut that he had? If he got his mullet back on and ran right in front of her, she wouldn't know what's going on.
So, and this is the point, right? Because okay, there's a couple people who have been coaches and a couple of people who have had meaningful contributions to the game of football. The Sugar Bowl president is not someone who's had a meaningful contribution to the game of football, but okay. But if you start padding it with random other people, you amplify the possibility of corruption here, right? And again, I will use this example because it's the most recent, and I am in no way accusing anybody of anything here, but I'm saying last year there was a big controversy with Alabama not making it to the College Bowl playoff because they were fifth, and some people said that they should have been Ohio State didn't. There was arguments about Ohio State didn't they should have been in over Ohio State or over whatever. And the thing is, the more people you have on this committee, the more chances that they could know. Potentially, Nick Saban could know that person or know someone who does know them, and then you can have lobbying or literally just straight up corruption. Now, again, I'm not accusing Nick Saban. I don't think Nick Saban is but that situation, that coach in that fifth or sixth spot or whatever, there's nothing stopping them if they know these people. If you know the president of, say, the Sugar Bowl or that writer or an AD from someone who maybe you crossed paths with years ago, or maybe you got them a job at you could be hey, you should make the argument to other people to rank us, right? And if they're not standing there with rigorous math backing up their rankings, they could be swayed by some random person saying, hey, we should rank this. Because you think that coach is just going to be hey, tell them to put me. They're going to feed them a bunch of favorable stats, and then they're going to put down some graph on the table in the middle of the conference room in that Marriott and be hey, you should rank this. And again, it's probably not the biggest of concerns, but that the more you pack this with random people, that that concern exists.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry so much about a Nick Saban as much as, the SEC fans who paid $100,000 to get Cam Newton or $100,000 to get Albert Means at Alabama. Those are the ones where I think it can get
Yes.
really nasty to that point. So really good point. Okay. Thank you for letting me get that off my chest. I feel a lot better and a lot worse at the same time. I like at least I feel better having shared the ineptitude of these four dopes. I'm sure they're smart people in what they do, but in the milieu of who should be deciding college football rankings, dope, 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 dope. Sorry, get off my committee.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and that's me. That's not Robert, although he's nodding. I'm not going to say he agrees with me. Buck the bookie. That's Buck with a B. For those of you who are reading the transcription at home, um, you you've got a full plate here. I don't know if you feel
Yeah.
any urges to make any moves here.
I'm pretty good. We can cross a couple of some of these have lost now. LSU, that was painful. Air Force did lose last week, but that did not affect their odds to win the Mountain
Yeah.
West because Army is a non-conference opponent. So
Yep.
that is still live. But yeah, I think LSU, our bets on LSU and LSU and Missouri last week didn't pay off. Missouri came close, and LSU also came close. I think it was worth a shot there, but um,
I kind of
yeah, I
got you by
think we're
getting
gonna.
plus 900 on LSU. I baited you into that 40
Yeah,
points.
you did bait me. I was gonna go lower. I was gonna like 20, and then you baited me. But that's okay. We'll move on. But
Okay.
yeah, I've got a lot of good looking stuff. Ohio State, um, and the thing is, yeah, you're a bit ahead there of DraftKings. So yeah, we've got some bets. We've got some conference championship games. That's going to be a very big weekend for a lot of these future bets. So
Yeah, it is.
yeah.
Definitely will.
And I think if Texas if Texas wins this week, you can cross off the
Yeah.
under 9.5 there as well. So that would be a little sad, but um,
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily want that because I want to beat you and DraftKings. I don't want to basically have the point being that DraftKings is better at this than I am. That's really not how this is. That
yeah,
was not the intent when I came up with this idea.
it's the
I
thing is
just
it's yeah.
if this segment just disappears like in late November or early December, I'm just telling you all right now that's probably what happened, and I just axed it from the slides here, and we're gonna pretend like it never happened.
So the thing is, it's actually an interesting idea. I feel like what we should like this segment for like next year should probably come back as like because I think to be fair, there's not a lot. You're not going to get a lot more juice out of the orange here in the last bit of the season. Like there's not going to be many more future bets you're making.
Yep.
So I think this segment is actually really good because as you walk through the season, you got to see kind of our thought, at least my thought process of potential
Yeah.
future bets that we thought were undervalued, and some of them amazing, right? Florida State to make the CFP, Oregon Pac-12 champs. That was a little bit early. Air Force, like you got to see our thought process as you go through the season, and I think that's actually a very valuable thing to have. And I think we need to maybe it's not going to be the exact same format next year, but I think something like that should come back next year. Yeah.
Yeah. I think next week too, I'll actually designate at least should I beat you, where you're going to make your small charitable donation in my name. So
Fair.
something for you to think about too. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Our week 10 plays overall, we did pretty good. I went 1-3. You went 2-1. The dual model plays went, I think that's 5-4. Yeah. So
5-4. Yeah.
yeah, so I think we're just a little bit north of one game north of 500 for the week. Composite ROI of 11.9. If you do the math on that, I don't know if you know this. If you take your ROI, divide it by 2, or how do I say this? Let's do the math the other way. Start with 52.5%. You take your win percentage minus that, then you double that difference, and that gets your ROI. So you take that back, and we're winning at just about 58.4% or so, which is really nice. It's almost exactly where we were for all of last season. Remember, the dual model plays at least were just south of 59%. The other note I put on here is since I'm especially proud of my model total plays. 15-9 on the season. Now some of those are in here, and some of those are in here. They're in here if basically Robert's model confirms it. 20% ROI. I don't know anybody that wouldn't take that, even a professional. That would be ideal. They'd probably be a little skeptical and saying how much are you leaving off the table by, by going with that much of an ROI. But good job by us on the season so far. Last week, your preseason upset that you had called for LSU over Alabama unfortunately did not come through. This is interesting. This is just a 1-point game, Texas State and Coastal, and you've got, I think, the smarter side on that. Although crazy Tim Beck, who knows what kind of volatile stuff he's going to do from week to week. Yeah, I don't have any. I think the rest of these, I think almost most of these are like in a week from Saturday. I think these one, this is there, and then you've got, so that'll be a big one that next weekend's podcast. And we get to this week's plays. Not so many. It's interesting. I've historically seen this be a pattern. I got a little crossed up, but I thought it was the first week of September, but it's almost always the second week of September. Just the number of plays just shrivels. This is really when the models seem to align a lot more with the market, and it happens year in and year out. When I track over year my plays, just the number of plays just goes way down starting now. And then there's a little bit of a reset when we get to the bowls for whatever reason. I don't know if that's, you've got a sudden burst of interconference games that you didn't have before. So we both love Louisiana here. My only concern,
they let us down last week.
Yeah, they did. The other concern is that Southern Miss, their offense, like I mentioned last week, has gone a little bit better once Will Hall got out of calling the plays, which is kind of funny, seeing as he's an offensive coordinator in his prior life. We both have Kentucky. You've actually got Bama by a field goal. I actually have, and I don't know about this. This is hard to believe. I've got Kentucky winning by 2. Crazy stuff here.
Yeah, it is. That's a weird one. The thing is, it's funny. We spent the last 2 hours praising Jalen Milroe, and then our models are like, yeah, but actually he's bad.
No, I know it's bad.
Well, not bad, but it's like, yeah, it's weird. I don't know about this Kentucky team. Like, this Kentucky team beat Florida, but then lost. Oh, that's who they lost. They got crushed by Georgia. I don't know. The thing is, it's funny because 11 is like suspiciously weird. Like, if you're looking, like, everybody's going to be on Bama. Everybody was on Bama last week too. If you're a book and you're like, I have to make sure there's enough points here that I give Kentucky a decent chance to cover, but I don't want to make it so everybody bets on Bama. 11's a bit low. Like, you would have thought 17 and a half.
Yeah.
This Kentucky team hasn't been that good. And
North of 14, and they're like not 14, a public team at all.
Yeah, Kentucky's not particularly a public team, so yeah, that's a very weird line. I would, I feel like you're rolling with Kentucky.
I've grabbed it.
It's ugly. It's ugly, but it's a play.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Because I can't see Kentucky, trading punches with him. It's got to be a rock fight. This next one here, this is interesting. You've got the total basically right on the market for North Texas's SMU. I've got that awesome SMU defensive rating. We talked about earlier. I think they jumped into the top 10 in, I forget if it was total defense or pass defense, but they've just, they've really made strides there. So I'm playing the under here, but it's not a dual model play, but it's, going back to this slide, it's in this group of that's hit at 20% ROI. So make of that what you will. We talked about Oklahoma State at UCF. I got this wrong. Yeah. This is a dual model play, and it's going to be the wrong team favored play. So if you're looking at home, please disregard this none. Drop in UCF there and grab them money line if you so wish to be like Robert and I. I love this 28.5, and I'm going under.
To be fair, I have 28, so it's a thing. So here, the one thing about my model is weird is that generally my model is higher scoring than the books, but like every once in a while it will weirdly land exactly on the books total, and I haven't figured out what that means yet. But I just know that it's a weird occurrence, and it's just like like my usually actually for the NFL it's usually pretty good, but it's just like sometimes it just weirdly lands right on the total, and I'm just like, it's very weird. But yeah, I take under in this. Iowa is horrible. Also, Rutgers is pretty bad too. So, yeah,
And these are two top 10 defenses,
yeah.
literally.
I think an underplay is very fair there. I just
It,
I love how like now Iowa is unencumbered from having to score points. Now they're like we don't have to do it anymore. Now they're just like we're just not going to score now. So
I'm just going to give people that are watching on YouTube a little bit of whiplash here. So this is a total play, Rutgers and Iowa, and I just want to go back to where we see these kids. All right, if I go to the bum lists, well, hey, who has the least explosive passing offenses? Well, Iowa and Rutgers are two of the top 10. Awesome. Who's the third worst quarterback in all of college football? Gavin Wimsatt. Nice kid, I'm sure. Not a good quarterback, and he's facing. We go here. Top 20 defenses. Where is Iowa? Oh, well, I'm sure he'll have a good day against the number 2 defense. That'll go well. And on the other side of the ball, when we go to my defensive apex, yeah, well, I'm sure Brian Ferentz will really find a way against the 9th best pass defense to liven things up. So 28's a tiny number, but this is the kind of game I love to bet the underrun.
so just a quick note about Iowa's passing offense. It's so funny because the 1 week he was the Iowa quarterback was I think like plus it was like plus 150 or plus 190 to throw under a touchdown, like to throw no passing touchdowns. And then that was the week where there was like a random freak passing touchdown against I remember it was like a good defense too, I think. And then ever since that week, the line has always been like minus 110, minus 115, minus 120, like basically both ways. Like basically it's 50-50 whether or not he throws a passing touchdown. And it's so sad because I lost that one. I lost that bet. But like it was clearly the right play because immediately after they adjusted the line, like, yeah, no, that's not happening again. So like that's not happening.
No, not going to happen again. Exactly. All right, we talked about Tech at Kansas. We've both got this in easy play. Strangely, when I made this graphic, Kansas at 4 and it's down to 3.5. Really weird, that number. I don't understand that number going that way, but we've talked about that. And then we both, why do I not have, I'm sorry, this should be a dual model play as well, the last one here. Utah at Washington. My bad. Please put that in bold. You've got this 29. I've got this 18, and the market is at 8.5. So I can believe that based on the Washington offense I saw. Utah is not the same team on the road as they are at home, and notwithstanding their drubbing Jacob Conover and the ASU Sun Devils last week, I think that their offense is pretty shaky. And against one more reminder here, there is a wrong team favored dual model play, and that would be Oklahoma State at UCF. You want to take UCF if you want to be like Robert and I. So apology for the typos here. You can see my plays and the dual model plays. Again, Washington's a dual model play, as is UCF. What do you have? You mentioned Michigan before and alt lines and all kinds of crazy stuff. Are you going to play them, or are you going to wait to see on the Harbaugh news?
Can we make it a conditional play on Harbaugh coaching? Like, it's going to say next week it's going to be like Michigan minus 4.5 asterisk.
I'll go to Circus Sports, the best book in the world, and I'll just say, I want to make a bet, but only if Harbaugh is going to coach. They wouldn't even give me a drink ticket. They would just say, sir, go to FanDuel.
Go to FanDuel. FanDuel might take that bet. All right. We've got. Let me see here. I'm. One second. No, that line's right. I'm gonna regret this one, but Colorado plus 10. I'm gonna regret it. I know I am. But whatever.
We talked about that. I said there's a little frothy. I think it's at 10.5. Let me just see.
10.5. Yeah, 10.5. Yeah, it's 10.5.
Okay. Okay.
Let's see here. And then New Mexico State plus 4.5 against Western Kentucky. It's like every week we just bet this
Aggressive.
team, but it is aggressive,
Yeah.
but we're doing it.
I don't want you to overlook your biggest point spread here, or your biggest variance of the Eagles of Georgia Southern.
Yeah.
Giving a big 2.5 to my Marshall Thundering Herd.
Yeah. Okay, I'll do that. Georgia Southern and then also Texas State. Georgia Southern -2 and then Texas State -1.
Okay. Cool. Colorado,
Yeah.
New Mexico State, Georgia Southern, Texas State. Anything else?
Oh, Texas is only favored by 10 against TCU.
Yeah, weird line, huh? It wasn't
That is a
quite
weird.
enough to make, especially with the
I've got Texas
that
-16, but my model loves Texas.
when you got the TCU kid on the bum list too, which notwithstanding, well, I guess
Yeah.
not to rub it in, but he could have had a fun time tonight betting against Buffalo and
Yeah.
a bum list guy.
So then, all right. So, because here's the thing that doesn't make sense. So TCU lost by, I think, more than 10 to Texas Tech last week. And now they're underdogs to Texas by 10. And Texas Tech is only underdogs by like 3 to Kansas. That's a very weird... Those numbers don't make sense. I feel like they're saying Texas is going to lose.
To this guy?
I feel like they are. What else is it? What else are they trying to say? Like 10? Texas should crush them. Actually, even 16.5 is small. Like, so
Yeah,
you're saying that Texas Tech and Texas should beat TCU by equivalent amounts.
I'm just saying from a non-quantifiable standpoint, it's really fun to fade the names on the left side of this list here.
That is true. The thing is, I need Texas to lose games, so I will not bet that, but I will be watching that game because it could be really funny. It could be really funny.
Okay.
Just like how many times do we watch a college football game because like I don't have a side in this, but this could be really funny.
Oh no, that's at least like 30% of the whole enjoyment pie.
Yeah, at least.
So.
Okay. Well,
Okay,
that's
and
it for this week, I guess.
Last thing before we go, because it's your team and my team, prediction for USC at Oregon. Not your model. Just what are you? Just from
score?
your gut. What are you thinking? Yeah.
Will be a number of 45 to 28, whatever that is. That's 14. Yeah.
That's 17. Yeah.
17. Yeah, 45-28. Yeah.
I'm in this, just my gut. I think it's going to be 45-42, maybe 48-42. I think USC is going to score more points than people expect. And I think Oregon's going to score probably about as much as people expect. But I don't know. Well, I was going to say it's kind of late for you, but nothing's really late for you and your night owl habits.
I'm built different. Yeah. So that's a 10 o'clock game. I'm excited for that actually. At 10:30, I'll be even better. That's great.
Okay. Well, I would wish you good luck, but not this week. But good luck on the rest of your picks.
Yes, thank you. Good luck for you too. And yes, yeah.
Thank you.
It's gonna be a good game. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, and thank you everyone for listening / watching, and good luck this week, and we will see you next week.
See you next week.